So we are good to go. Over to you, Shilpa.
Thank you so much. So, a very warm good morning, everybody, and I welcome all of you on this amazing Sunday with an amazing speaker with us on Granth Express. So, please help me welcome the speaker for today. We are really fortunate and glad to have with us Mr. Venkatesh Madurai Subramaniam, who's very lovingly known as Venki. He's a father of two. He's currently living in Bangalore. He has been working since 1990. And from 2000 onwards, for close to 20 years, he worked with a well known travel technology company in France, UK, USA, and also in India, ending up in leadership roles. He quit his job last year and co founded a travel IT startup. It took off last year with a few others. He's also a life and leadership coach by passion. He's considered as a very down to earth guy with a cynical sense of humor by people who know him. Venki is an adventurer in the true sense. Skydiving, scuba, hang gliding off a mountain cliff, swimming with dolphins, stand up comedy, mimicry. He has tried it all, trust me. And in addition to all this, he also has a subtle yet keen interest in spirituality, where he volunteers for some organizations. So, well, here we have with us Venki. Over to you, Venki. Everybody put your hands together and let's welcome Venki.
Thank you very much, Shilpa, for the lovely, lovely introduction. Thank you all to be here on this Sunday. And I will start diving in straight away. What I would request is, if you have any questions, please do ask in the Q&A section here, or on Facebook if you're there on Facebook, and we will get to it at the end. I hope you're all able to see my screen here. Let me start with maybe a controversial kind of a statement. Let me say that I can predict with 100% surety our future, my future, and the future of all of us here today. I can predict it with 100% certainty. What I predict is that, say, about 125 years from now, all of us will be dead, right? That's a certainty. Now, the planet Earth is about, what, 4.5 billion years old or something. Our existence is not even an insignificant fraction of time, but it is very real, the time that we spend here with ourselves and our loved ones, right? What I would like to encourage you and think about is, what do we anticipate for ourselves, say, 125 years from now, when we no longer will be alive in the present form? How would we like our loved ones and the persons we care about and the persons whose opinions we care about but maybe not necessarily love, how would we like to be remembered, when we will no longer be here? Can that aspect govern whatever is it that we choose to do with our lives, or whatever is left of our lives on this planet? It's a very powerful thought. I tried to imbibe this in myself in my past, whether it was in a professional setting, in a small team, in a group, in a large organization, wherever I was. I would always think that one day I'm not going to be in this organization or with these group of people. I might move on to something else. And how would I like these guys, these people to remember me? That is something that I always tried to keep at the back of my mind whenever life threw any kind of challenges or choices that I had to make. One such person, as an example, I would like to quote to you, is my maternal uncle. Now, this guy, he never really lived for himself. He was the sole income earner in his family when his father had passed away. Today, when we remember him, we think about the sacrifices he had made. Another person who is, let's say, my coach and my mentor, and unfortunately, I don't listen to him as much as I probably should be. He continues to be my coach and my guide in my life. It's my dad. two things that he keeps telling me is something I would like to share with you, which I've been trying to imbibe in my own life. One is, as you can guess from his look, he's a very spiritual as well as a religious person. Two different things for me, spirituality and religion, but closely linked nevertheless, right? Anyway, so as part of his own spiritual and religious practice, what my dad keeps telling me is he constantly prays for. I guess somebody needs to go on mute. He constantly prays for the courage to be with him when life throws any kind of challenges or difficulties. You know, as long as there is life, there is going to be some pain at some point in the future, or even in the past, we might have experienced it. Pain can come in different forms, right? Physical, emotional, mental, whatever, financial. And what my dad keeps praying for is the courage to be able to face such pains, all right? Very, very powerful. The other thing that he keeps telling me is that it costs very less to be nice to people. He says it just takes a little bit more effort to be nice to somebody, to be even to a stranger for that matter, and the rewards are very great, right? So in my life so far, I've been trying to implement at least these two statements of his in different ways. For example, in the 20 years of my career so far, from 2004, I think, yeah, from 2004, I've been in managerial and in leadership kind of roles. I only fired somebody just once. I think it was way back in 2005 or something. After that, I've never actually fired anybody. You know, what I've done though is ensured that the experience of letting go of a person for whatever reason is not necessarily a very unpleasant one. You know, in the corporate world, we have something called as the performance improvement plan. Basically, you put a plan together for somebody who's not meeting the expectations. They go through the plan, and then at the end of it, either they shape up or they're asked to leave. I've never done this for anybody in my life till now. Because what I do is, in order to make the experience an emotionally balanced one, I sit down with them, have a conversation where they realize that I had certain expectations or the organizations had certain expectations. And then either they shape up or they come back to me and say that, you know, Venki, these expectations we can't meet with, and then they leave on their own accord. So the learning for me here that I would like to share with all of you is, even when there is a task, something that needs to be done, which may not be a joyful or a pleasant one, there is no reason we need to make it an unpleasant one. We can be very emotionally balanced with the person and, you know, have a fruitful outcome. Which takes me to another subject that I'd like to discuss with you is, at the beginning of my career, sometime in 1993, I came across this little application. I don't know if any of you have ever seen it. It's called a bulletin board system. So basically, what would happen is somebody would hook up a telephone to a modem and connect the modem to their computer on which they would host this bulletin board system. You could dial in with your own computer and modem, download games, software, shareware, whatever, leave messages for others, read their messages, and so on. This was much before the internet, right? A couple of years before. And I used to find it fun. It used to be very enjoyable as an experience. Later on, in 1995 or so, Videsh Sanchar Nigam Limited, BSNL, came up with internet access, public internet access. And a group of us who are doing stuff like this, we got together, and with BSNL, we started providing help to people on how to use the internet. Initially, it was very cumbersome, and we automated a few things for them. And then in 96, one of these guys involved with me here came up to me and he said, Venki, there's some money to be made in this. which was immediately very interesting. And I chucked my job and we created a small little enterprise. And in fact, it might again shock you, my educational background has got nothing to do with IT or software per se. It was a passion that I developed and then nurtured. With the result, in 1997, I had my first e-commerce application for a bunch of customers in the United States. In 98, when my son was born, we were doing online hotel reservations for about 124 hotels in India, instant confirmation. We didn't get a lot of bookings, but we got a good amount of publicity. The learning I would like to share from this experience is that it is very important for us, for me, it was very important to pursue my passion, whatever it may be, personal, professional, to see where it could lead to some kind of a logical conclusion, positive or negative, whatever be the case in terms of a conclusion. And then see if there is an economic benefit that is to be derived out of it. In other words, I wanted to do something that I enjoyed, and I wanted to figure out a way how to get paid out of that, either from an employing organization or from customers, as the case may be. So it's very important, and this is something that I'm trying to nurture even today with my passion in coaching. Now let's fast forward a little bit. I would like to talk about an experience where I was already in a leadership role, and during the course of my managerial and leadership roles, I discovered my own strengths. What people would tell me, especially people working closely with me, would tell me, and I became acutely aware of my own strengths as well as a little bit of weaknesses. And one of the strengths that I used to take immense pride in was that I was always connected to my team members. At least that's what I thought. That I would know most of my team members professionally and even to a large extent personally, depending on the relationship with them. And that used to be a source of pride. And at one point in time, a friend walked up to me and he said, Venki, there's this guy in your team and he's going through a medical situation. Are you aware of this? I said, yes. The guy, he's been hospitalized. He wanted some time off and we've given him the time off, and sooner or later he's going to be back on his feet. And then this friend of mine, he said, no, Venki, the situation seems to be a bit more serious. Why don't you dive in and look at some of the detail? He might need your help. So immediately I felt a bit guilty, because here I was thinking that, I'm Mr. Know-all, I know what's happening with my team members, and this was an alert. What I found out was that this person, he had a very serious clinical issue called the Budd-Chiari. It's a very rare liver disease. And basically, the only way out was to have a liver transplant done. To make matters a bit more challenging, his wife was pregnant with their first child at the same time. And the organization, of course, was helping. There was the medical insurance and so on and so forth. But a liver transplant is really a big deal, right? Insurance only covers up to an extent, isn't it? So they were desperately short of finances and it was very worrying. I came back and I told the rest of his friends, I said, I understand the situation a lot more better now and we need to do something. I don't know what to do, blah, blah, blah. And some of these guys said, Venki, why don't we ask around for people to contribute voluntarily, of course. And I said, well, from an organization's perspective, the organization is doing its bit with additional benefits and so on. But there's no harm in asking for people to help. And there were challenges in making this happen. But the beauty of this is once it started moving, everybody cooperated. The kind of support that poured in was absolutely incredible. It was beautiful. There were drivers who contributed. It was amazing. The learning here for me was that when it comes to leadership, leadership doesn't have to come from the so-called leaders, the so-called managers or directors or whatever. It can come from people who believe in something, who believe in an objective, a goal, and in making that happen. And today, this guy, he's got 2 children, living happily, healthy, fit. Amazing story, right? Amazing. But the leadership example here is something that is very humbling. Imagine an entire organization coming together where everybody involved plays some part in making it happen. Fantastic story. Let me forward a bit more and talk about something else that I really enjoy, which is part of my own, let's say, DNA. I started a physical activity after a gap of something like, I don't know, 25 years or so, because I wanted to get fit. My dream was to do this trek around the Mount Kailash on the Mansarovar Lake. And I said, in order to do that, I need to get fitter. And I used to confuse being thin as being a sign of fitness physically. So anyway, so I started walking first and doing a little bit of light jogging. And I found that I enjoyed it. And this is something that is scientifically proven, because when there is a physical activity like any kind of a sport, there is the pituitary gland in our brain that triggers a chemical known as the endorphin. And this is a chemical that is responsible for the state of happiness in the mind. The 2 scans that you see here, on the left is when the brain is very quiet and very calm and stable. And the one on the right is after 20 minutes of just walking around. You know, the brain is a lot more receptive in order to take decisions, in order to articulate, in order to communicate, and so on and so forth. So I started doing this and started getting some pain because, 20 odd years of a sedentary kind of a lifestyle and so on. And I started getting some pain in my knees and my calf muscles and so on. And I went and saw a bunch of physiotherapists, and they said, you are 47 years old, you have flat feet. So my feet are flat as a duck's feet. They said, you're going to have problems, don't run, walk around, do other things, but don't run. And I was really upset because I wanted to run, I wanted to jog, I used to enjoy it. And then I met this fantastic lady, Nirupma Singh. She is a shining example of fitness. She's got her own fitness story and a running story to her credit, where she's won many events consecutively. Nirupma convinced me that age is just a number, that there is no age where you could start your own fitness journey. She gave me a bunch of exercises to do, and I could barely manage 2 kilometers at a stretch. And she said, Venki, don't worry, within a few months, you'll be running 10 kilometers. And I didn't believe her, but I did it, So the learning I would like to share from this experience is that the brain is very powerful, Whatever be a physical limitation or even an emotional one that we set for ourselves, it just exists within certain boundaries that people understand, or we understand those boundaries to be, right? When we tune our brain to achieve a certain goal, something that may be a bit challenging even in some ways, the brain sends the right amount of signals to the body and pushes it and encourages it to reach a certain goal, a certain objective. And that can be very powerful. I believe that training the brain is as important as even training the body also. So that was my fitness journey. And even in that journey, there was, let's say, a stumbling block. Now, in my life, I've had quite a few physical accidents, on 2-wheelers and so on. And me being me, I used to tell myself that I was some kind of maybe a superhuman, somebody who would never get a bone fracture, because I never had one in my life. And it eventually happened, and it happened while, in fact, I was running in Chennai. I had a fracture on my foot. The doctors told me it's going to take, I don't know, about, I think, 4 to 6 months before I would be back on my feet and so on. And it was extremely, extremely frustrating, because I was actually addicted to this feel-good factor in my brain whenever I would run. So I was in a horrible state of mind. And to add to this challenge, there was a big restructuring happening where I was working, and a lot of uncertainties. What had happened to me, my role, whether I would still have a leadership role, and so on and so forth. A horrible, horrible state of affairs. A part of my brain was telling me that, Venki, you're going to be physically handicapped for the rest of your life. Another part of my brain was telling me, don't be stupid. It is just a fracture. Get over it. You'll be back on your feet. Just bear it. Just go with it. And at that time, I decided to implement something that had been kind of a wish list for me. A couple of years before I started on my fitness journey, I had started learning some, let's say, Vedic prayers. There is this prayer for Lord Shiva. It's called the Sri Rudram. And if you chant it, even in the shortest possible version, it lasts about 25 minutes. So here I was with a fractured foot. I didn't know how to spend my time. So I said, okay, let me put it to good use. And I learned this within a few weeks, within a week actually. And the beauty of this is I would use my phone with a speaker and repeat line after line, because the incantation in terms of Vedic prayers is very important. It's very important to have the right tonality and so on. Okay. The beauty of this was when I was learning this, towards the end of it, even without a backrest, I would sit and just doze off. And my wife would walk up to me and wake me up and say, it's time for breakfast. It was really beautiful. I came back on my feet. The issues at the workplace got sorted out. And believe it or not, within a few months, I think it was about 9 months later, at an amateur event where you have these marathons and events, running events organized, I secured second place in my own age category. It was beautiful. It was wonderful. So I was back on my feet at that time. Again, for me, the very important learning here was, when we go through ups and downs in life, it is okay to be in that downward curve, right? It's okay. I mean, after all, I am a human being. There are emotions, there are thoughts. At the same time, what I realized that it is very important for me to recognize that I am on that downward slope, right? Very important to also realize that I need to make every effort that it doesn't become a downward spiral. Also equally important is for me was to realize that when I'm in that downward slope, it's very crucial not to make any important decisions, personal, professional, or whatever it may be. Because again, going back to the brain scans that I shared a few minutes back, when the brain is bombarded with all kinds of emotions, maybe negative ones as well, the decision-making parts of the brain are simply not equipped, because they are getting this crazy cocktail of emotions and feedback and nervous reactions that at that point in time, any decision that I make is not bound to be statistically a fulfilling one, a positive one, isn't it? So what I keep telling myself whenever I go through a low period is that I need to recognize that I am on the downward slope. Avoid taking important decisions. Work towards making that slope go back up so that I'm back to my normal level of performance, whatever that normal level may be. Yeah, fantastic learning for me, which was very, very rewarding for me. Now, moving on, something else I would like to share with you is when I created my startup last year, there was this lead that we were pursuing where we were going to meet somebody very senior in the industry who was promising us a very substantial business deal. And this person was based in Bangalore. And the person who referred me to this person said the meeting is at 9:30 in the morning. This was pre-COVID, so the crazy Bangalore traffic and all that. And I went back to this person. I said, look, Google says that the office is shut And this person who got this reference, he said, don't worry, Venki, Google may be lying. Google is not infallible. Google make mistakes. Just be there at 9:30. So here I am struggling through Bangalore traffic, trying to reach this place at least a few minutes in advance. And then a common contact, another friend, sends me a message saying, Venki, guess what? The office doesn't exist anymore. And they've actually moved to Delhi. I was furious. If the person had been in front of me, the one who got us this contact, I would have probably caused some grievous physical injury to the guy, which is why maybe he didn't contact me directly. Bangalore traffic, an hour and a half of driving. I mean, I was boiling. I would have, done something really bad. So I said, okay, I got over it and I said, let's put this to some good use. And in fact, I thought about my son. My son he's a musician. During his college days at the university, he was a bass guitarist. It was something of a passion for him. He learned it all by himself, being a bass guitarist. He created a band with some of his friends called Kelvi Kuri. It means a question mark in Tamil. He created this band, and these guys, they went on to win many awards in inter-college championships. And what had happened was, Deccan Herald, which is a well-known paper in Bengaluru, they wrote an article about this guy and his group. Fantastic, right? Beautiful. So I said, well, here I am stuck in Bangalore traffic, going back to my office, but can I put it to good use? So I went to the Deccan Herald, asked them for copies of the newspaper so that I could proudly share it with my friends and relatives and so on. And me being me, I was happily chatting away with those people there. I was telling them what I did, what do I do, what do I enjoy doing, and so on and so forth. And guess what? What happened next was that they came up with an article where they featured me the next week. They were doing an article about people who are around 50 years old doing various things. And there I was on their weekend cover. Fantastic, right? I mean, it was so beautiful. So again, a fantastic learning for me to always, get out of that low period and keep looking for anything that could bring me any amount of positive energy. What I would like to share with you here is, in this frame of mind where the positive juices are flowing, it's a matter of time before the universe converges. The universe will react positively to me. It's bound to happen. It is magical, it may be mystical, but it will happen. And it has happened many, many times in my life. The universe converges. The universe doesn't really give a rat's, what about me. I'm just not even a speck of dust, right? But on a pragmatic, realistic level, what I realized and what I would like to share with you is that in this positive state of mind, what has worked for me is that the brain is positive. It's open to thought. It's open to explore possibilities. It is open to explore anything that could happen in a positive way. It will evaluate every single possibility and nurture it and take it to some logical conclusion. And that conclusion can be something that is deeply inspiring, motivating, and rewarding, right? This is a fantastic example. Another example I would like to share with you is in my startup journey. I'm talking about my travel startup now. We came across this person in the travel industry who threw a challenge at me. He said that, Venki, at airports, how can we communicate to the passenger's mobile phone if it is completely disconnected from the airport's Wi-Fi or from 2G, 3G, 4G, and so on, and yet be able to send some message to the phone like a flight change or a flight delay and so on and so forth. My initial gut reaction to this guy was, this guy is crazy. He seems to be an IT guy, but he's talking balderdash. He's talking nonsense, without a network connection, and he didn't even want Bluetooth to be used. The phone is practically on airplane mode. So I thought he was making fun of me after a 45-minute presentation to him. So I said, okay, let me put my emotion aside and try to figure out what is he getting at. So then he said, okay, basically international arrivals at airports, people who live outside India, they don't get to use the airport's Wi-Fi for many reasons. You know, there are some regulations, telecom regulatory restrictions that come with it. So he said the international arrivals passengers, they don't get live notifications on the telephone. So we went back with a positive frame of mind, and the net result there is we now have a patent pending that this is working, and we are showing demos of this to airports around the world to show them how it can work today with their existing infrastructure at the airports. Something brilliant, right? So again, another positive experience where the universe converges when I attack something on a positive note. When it comes to leadership, something I keep hearing time and again from everybody is this talk about strengths and weaknesses, right? Nature isn't perfect, the world isn't perfect, but when it comes to people who are in some kind of a role, some kind of a position of power, suddenly there is this expectation to be perfect. You know, suddenly there is this demand that you need to be perfect because you're a leader, right? And then there is all this talk of you are very good at this, you do this fantastically well, you are doing this very good, you are delivering, you are getting business results, but you need to work on these weaknesses. These weaknesses are going to kill you, Venki. These weaknesses are are going to be your downfall. You watch out, so on and so forth. So let's take a very, very favorite but real example of mine. Let's take a fish. Now there's this very famous quotation attributed to Einstein on a fish. Let's take a small little assumption. Let's assume that this fish that you see here is a vegetarian, that it would like to eat fruits. Yeah, it's possible. Now, what is this fish's strength? Its strength is swimming in the water. That's what it's born with. We are all born with certain core talents, core nature, if you like. I even think that leaders are born, but in a different way. Leaders are born out of circumstances, out of the culture, the upbringing that they come with, right? So we are all born, we all exist with a certain amount of strengths and talents. The fish's strength is its swimming. Now, if the fish wants to eat this fruit, the most obvious point is that the fish would need to climb the tree to reach the fruit. But is this possible? Is this really doable? Is this pragmatic? Is this practical? And my answer is yes. Do you know that there are 3 species of fish that can actually climb trees in different parts of the world? There's one in the Caribbean. This one, for example, it uses its fins to climb a tree. And again, the spirit of positivity kicks in, right? Where it has taken this fish probably generations to develop itself genetically to be able to use its fins to climb a tree, right? If we look at it from a different perspective, from the perspective of our corporate existence, so to speak, in our personal lives as well, we may not have this luxury. Here, Mother Nature helped. She helped this fish to develop its fins so that it's able to climb a tree. In reality, we may not have that luxury in our daily lives, right? In order to accomplish something like this. What if the fish that we saw before, what if it's able to use its strengths to achieve its objective? And this is a real video that somebody has shared and put on YouTube, by the way. Look, see how the fish has used its strength. The learning from this for me is that irrespective of the weaknesses that I have, irrespective of whatever strengths I may have, what is my focus? What is my objective? Is my objective to conquer my weakness, like my flat feet, for example? Or is my objective to reach a certain business goal or to reach a certain professional or a personal goal when I know that I will not be able to take out the time to tackle that particular weakness? What can I do myself in order to circumvent that weaknesses, that set of weaknesses in me, in order to reach the goal that I would like to achieve for myself? Can I supplement that weakness by using the strength of a fellow colleague, a team member, a relative, a friend, or somebody else? Can I focus more on my strengths, because the return of investment of time, energy, cost, whatever it may be, can be much more higher if I capitalize on my own strengths, isn't it? At the same time, it is very important for me to be aware, even painfully if it may be, of my own weaknesses. Right? So that's one thought I would like to share with you. And this is something that I try to inculcate in myself in the present circumstances, in my different startup approaches. Even when I'm talking to my coaches, to the people I try to help, I try to implement this in different ways as possible in order to help them to find their own courage, to find their own strengths, to find how they themselves can enable their strengths and their own, blessings that they have received in order to reach their own personal and professional goals. On this note, I would like to share some of the books and articles that I've come across, which have left a very lasting impression on me. This one from Sonia talks about different ways in which we can attain different levels of happiness. Physical activity is one of them, of course. She also talks about kindness. She also talks about the power of prayer, of spirituality, and so on. Fantastic reading. It's some things that we can do in our own lives to achieve happiness in whichever way that we may choose to find it. I firmly believe that, there is this model of the circle of influence from Stephen Covey, right? I don't know, many of you would have heard of it. What I can control eventually, truly, really control, is how I choose to react in certain circumstances. I choose to react. When different circumstances happen in my life, some things may be in my zone of influence, and some things may be completely beyond my control. But how I choose to react is my own choice. My level of consciousness, of awareness, helps me in me choosing to react in a certain way. It's a conscious choice. I'm not very good at it. I'm trying to get there. But my effort constantly is to make every reaction as much controlled as possible and as much conscious as possible. And some of this and the other writings by another very famous writer called Daniel Goleman are fantastic readings on this topic. They make for excellent reading. Daniel Goleman, in this book, Working with Emotional Intelligence, he talks of a lot of pragmatic applications of this. He talks about, in some other books on emotional intelligence, Daniel also talks about the very real scientific studies done on the brain, the different chemical reactions that occur in our brains when we go through different experiences. One very favorite incident I remember from this book that I would like to share with you is he talks about this lady who was walking on the road and she was confronted by some muggers who had a knife in their hands. They asked her for her money. Now, she may have been going through a lot of turmoil inside her brain, but the way she chose to react was she told the guys, she said, "What do you want? You want my money? Put the knife away. I'll give you whatever money I have. But once I've given you the money I have, I would like you to turn around and walk away." The effect on this person was that he takes the money and slowly starts walking away, but he starts picking up pace as he walks away. What a brilliant example. So Daniel talks of many instances like this, where we can be a lot more aware of the emotional reactions that are happening in our brain with a very scientific and methodical approach. These books are very big, mind you. They make for fantastic reading though, but excellent piece of reading on emotional intelligence. Another book which my dad actually gifted to me is a book by Parthasarathy that talks of the principles of Advaita Vedanta and Bhagavad Gita and so on. So one of the aspects of this also is he refers also to a poem by Theodore Tilton, which says that even this shall pass away. Everything, this talk I'm doing, the state of affairs that I'm in with my different startups, the different state of affairs that I have been in my past, even this shall pass away. Everything passes away. Right? So he talks about this. He talks about the different learnings of Advaita Vedanta. He talks of attachment in detachment. Even the Gita, in my view, teaches us, persuades us to be detached. Right? The way I look at detachment is, I try to look at it in two perspectives. One is the action that I'm performing. And if I believe in what I'm doing, I'll give it my 100%, sometimes my 200% in the actions that I take, whatever actions I may be taking. At the same time, what I keep trying to tell myself is to be detached from the outcome of it, because the outcome may not be in my hands. So in this book, Parthasarathy sir talks about a lot of detachment that one can inculcate using different very pragmatic, very realistic examples. And for me, the mother of all books is a set of translations in English, discourses of the Kanchi Mahaswamiji, the Kanchi Paramacharya, which talk of many aspects of spirituality and personality as it applies in our daily life. Fantastic reading, really fantastic. The way I look at religion, at Hinduism, is that it's a way of life. It's not a religion. When the first invaders crossed the river Sindhu, our ancestors didn't have a name for our way of life. So the invaders looked at us and they said, anybody living across the river are Hindus. So for me, Hinduism is a way of life. And the way the Acharyaji, he talks about different aspects of Hinduism in this context is absolutely brilliant reading. I haven't finished all of it. But it is fantastic reading. And to wind up, I'll just introduce my startup at the very end, which I've called as Coachiagram, because it's to do with coaching and it's to do with the principles of Enneagram, which is basically a very proven technique for us to be a lot more aware of ourselves. Because for me, the first step in any kind of a self-improvement process is a heightened level of self-awareness. So what I'm trying to do here is to put together a little tool that each one of us can experience for ourselves based on well-established techniques and start on our own journey of self-discovery and maybe even self-rediscovery. With that, Kapil, I think I'm on time and I've taken up my 45 minutes, and let's start the Q&A. Thank you all for your patience.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Venki. Amazing session. So any questions, I would request to unmute yourself and ask. Else you can put it in the chat box as well. Ali sir, welcome.
Let me say something quickly. Sorry, before we go to the Q&A, very sorry. Let me propose a thought to all of us. Let me say that there are no stupid questions. There are only stupid answers probably coming from me. So with that in mind, let's have your questions. Thanks.
Absolutely. Yes. So the floor is open, participants. You can go ahead with the questions.
Shilpa, can I, sorry. Yeah, who's supposed to go first?
Yes, Feza, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Venki, I am so interested when you shared about you running despite your flat feet and the age, the age challenge and all, because in my case, I am now 51 years old, and I'm planning to climb Mount Kinabalu at this age. Yeah, so I am now training myself. And when you said, from zero with flat feet, and the doctor said, no, you can just walk and no running, but someone actually helped you and mentor you where you are now. So yeah, I'm very interested in that part of your journey and experience. Would you elaborate more on that, how you manage that and be who you are now? Thank you.
I'll be very quick on this, Faiza. We know each other, so we can continue this conversation later on. But for the benefit of everybody here, let me just say this. The physiotherapist told me for very good reasons, because when the feet is flat, it's a deformity. There's supposed to be an arch, which is not supposed to be touching the ground. And in my case, it was hammering the ground every time. And what happens is, in that situation, the legs start bending. It's called pronation. And I did some my own homework, and I said, okay, worst case, I might get some pain. Worst case, maybe even break a leg, I don't know. But let me take some baby steps in this regard and then evaluate. When it comes to this fantastic, beautiful, lovely coach that I had, let me quickly share another little thought. Before the advent of GPS, when we would want to reach somewhere, we would ask a complete stranger the way to reach a particular destination, isn't it? That person could be a serial killer for all we know. He might be taking you to a blind spot where you're going to get butchered or murdered, or even worse, right? But at that point in time, we decide to put our faith in that person. And we say, let me go along the journey for some steps, see where it takes me, and then decide for myself. So I put my faith in myself and in my coach, took some baby steps, see how it turned out. And then that's it. That's all about it. Take some baby steps, see where it takes you, and decide for yourself.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we'll take that on offline. Thank you so much, Venki.
My pleasure, Faiza. Thanks for the first question.
Venki, I have a question. My name is Johnny. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, Johnny. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So you spoke about coaching with another element, which I don't think I grasped. So can you just elaborate on that?
Which element are you referring to, Johnny, please?
You spoke about, you had a word which is starts with coaching and then ends with something
It's
else.
Enneagram. It's Enneagram, Venki.
Yeah. See,
so what is that?
when it comes to self-discovery and self-awareness, there are a whole bunch of tools out there. Some of the well-known tools are the DISC profile, the Gallup Strength Finder, the 16 MBTI types, and so on and so forth. There are a whole bunch of them. The Enneagram is one such model of personality that explores relationships and the personality generally.
Okay.
And it's a very proven technique, and it's not proprietary, unlike the other modules that exist out there. And there are plenty of modules well proven and time tested. I picked the Enneagram because between me and the other coaches and the other HR experts I've spoken to, all of us loved and still love the Enneagram. And I just automated it so that people can experience it for themselves. That's what I've done.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Johnny.
Questions? We have one question from Preeti Sonar ma'am. She asks, as a parent, what can we do to develop emotional intelligence? Her kids are in primary class.
Sorry, I didn't get the second part, Shilpa. What can we do to develop intelligence and?
Her kids are in primary class. So what can she do to develop their emotional intelligence?
Her daughter is in primary class.
Yeah.
Going back to I speak from my own personal experiences, okay? Yours experience, everybody's experience is different. We are all different individuals. Speaking from my own personal experience, I would say learn from your child who's in the primary class. I learned a lot of stuff from my own sweet little princess. I'll give you an example. There was a time when my daughter, I think she was maybe 5 or 6 years old, and my son is, 7 years elder to her. So my son was a teenager at that time, and she was playing with this friend of hers who was creating absolute ruckus and chaos. And my son tells her, he says, "How can you even play with this person? How do you even tolerate this person? Because he's such a spoiled brat." And you know what my daughter says? She says, "I love her, I just don't like her bad habits." So the long and short of it is that children are, I think they are fantastic teachers. We shouldn't try to force them, to mold them the way we would like them to be. And if we try to mold them in a way we would like to be, we are creating our own image. If our own image of ourselves is perfect, it's a different story. But rather than teaching emotional intelligence to kids, from my experience, what I would say is that we have a lot to learn from them. They are very innocent. They're not yet molded by our society and the different aspects that our society has unfortunately contribute to children.
Fantastic.
So what I'm hearing from you, Venki, is that children are born with emotional intelligence, and the context that we grow up in is what reduces that intelligence.
Absolutely. I think children are untouched to a large extent, but at the same time we are born with. I personally believe that I am born with a certain amount of nature behavior that's part of my DNA, right? Scientists call it genetic memory. How does a bird know how to build a nest? Who's taught it? Nobody, right? So I do believe that I am born with certain traits where people tell me that I imitate an uncle that I've never even seen, or a grandfather I've never even, great grandfather that I never even met. So I firmly believe that we are all born with certain inherent nature and inherent traits. And as we go along our journey of life, the circumstances that we encounter shape us, mold us into different people, into the people we are. And when we challenge that, when we open ourselves to different aspects of learning and experience, we get impacted. So to answer your question, absolutely yes. Sorry if it's a long answer.
Beautiful. Any more questions? We want our attendees to speak up, to have a good conversation. Yeah, Usha ji, would you like to say something?
Yeah, you were referring the Gita in terms of leadership. So I didn't understand the relationship between Gita and Advaita. That part I did not get.
Okay, let me elaborate a bit more. I have not read the Gita recently, but the parts that I've read about, two things. One is, for me, Lord Krishna was the best possible coach in the history of our country. Second is, when it comes to leadership, or even, let's say, positivity and emotional intelligence, one should not shy away from action, whatever that action may be, in terms of our role in society, in terms of our role professionally, personally. The action part is crucial. It is needed. Water that is not flowing is bound to accumulate all kinds of mass and dirt. Water that's not flowing. Water that's flowing is pure, stays pure unless us humans we corrupt it, and it merges with the ocean. The Gita talks about this as well. So there is definitely a lot of merit in action. That is the learning for me. At the same time, what the Gita is telling us is to be detached from the outcome of that action, of those actions. Because the outcome may not be totally in your zone of control and even maybe influence. Could we have predicted, any of us predicted the corona, for example? whatever we had planned for our business, for our professional, personal lives, it's beyond our control, right? Right? Even influence. So if we detach ourselves from the outcome, but we still continue in the actions with whatever actions are commanded of us from the roles that we are playing, that is the essence of Gita for me.
Okay.
And a true leader, whether he or she is, in a position of leadership, a true leader for me is somebody who imbibes this in the best possible way. And I try my level best here and there. It's not always easy, but that's what a true leader for me is.
And how does Coachiagram help with this?
For me, thanks again for the question. For me, when it comes to coaching, right? For example, in my leadership journey, I was literally dumped the coach by my HR guys. They said, Venki, you're now a leader. You need a coach. You need to work on your weaknesses. Use a coach, and so on and so forth. So I was dumped a coach on my head. I spoke to the coach, and this is a very expensive exercise, which is why HR personnel, they use coaches for the so-called leaders who are highly paid in every organization, because every professional comes with his or her own professional charges, right? It is normal. It is something that is expected. Pay a professional for his or her own due. But at the same time, the other effect of it is that coaching as a technique is then only available to the so-called leaders inside an organization. It's not available to everybody. In my view, personal view, anything that can bring positivity should be available for everyone, in some form or the other. And again, for me, at the very heart of coaching lies a heightened amount of self-awareness. So all I've done with my team is to automate the Enneagram, the questions of the Enneagram, which asks you a whole bunch of questions, finds your personality and asks you certain questions saying, hey, based on your personality, wouldn't you like to think about XYZ topics? So even if one person is not really a leader who can afford this high cost of a professional, they can still use this tool, by the way, for free right now, and help themselves, or take the help of any professional as well, optionally.
So it will gauge your personality and then it will guide you accordingly.
Correct.
Okay. And it is valid for schools, colleges, or only for companies?
It's valid for anybody who wants to have a higher level of self-awareness.
Okay.
Thank you for the question.
Venki, extending your last statement, the higher level of self-awareness, how would you define self-awareness, and what should be the basic things that one must consider when on path of being on self-awareness?
For me, it's self-awareness is not really, the way I see it, Kapil, is not an end goal. It is a starting, and I would also say it is a continuous journey, because circumstances in life change. My own awareness of my circumstances that I am presently in changes depending on the circumstance that I am in at a given point in time. So self-awareness for me is a part of this as well. And self-awareness also extends to the extent where I am realistically, pragmatically aware of what I can do and what I can't do. Self-awareness also means to me is whatever I am aspiring for, even with this little tool that I have, it may be very ambitious, it may be very aggressive, but my self-awareness tells me that some parts of it exist only inside my brain. I'm not telling everybody. That's part of my own self-awareness. What I'm telling everybody is a rough vision of something of what I would like to achieve. That there is some amount of, let's say, pragmatism there, right? So for me, self-awareness is a combination of all this. And I think a good starting point is to talk to the people I love, trust, and respect, who in turn have an interest in my own personal growth, to start there and say, what do you think of me? Tell me in your own words, in a way that I would listen to you, not just in a one-way disbursement of knowledge of Gyan, but in a way that I would understand. That could be a very good starting point.
Thank you, Venki.
Thanks, Kapil.
Yes, any more questions?
Ushaji, you seem to be on mute.
I was not self-aware. Okay, you said that you know what you can do and what you can't do, but there are many things you can't do that you want to do, right? So you want to. There are many things. So how do you define that this? So I can't. Like I know I can't become a brain surgeon. I should not even try. But maybe there are some things which I can do. So how to identify what I can do and get it to my side? That is the important part.
Absolutely right. Baby steps. Take baby steps. Why can't I be a brain surgeon? I mean, assuming that I will live till, I don't know, 98, 99, 110. Why can't I start on that now and become a brain surgeon at 99? Who is anybody to tell me that I can't be a brain surgeon at 99? The question is, do I want to be that? How badly do I want to be that? That's the more important question.
Yeah, that reminds me of the fish video that you just showed, right, Venki?
Absolutely, yeah. You're right, Anil. Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Okay, any questions? Kapil, do we have any questions on FB?
No.
Yes, Mr. Johnny, thank you so much for sharing your profile. All right. So once again, thank you so much, Venki.
Thank you. It was very enlightening.
Absolutely, I second that, Ushaji. And especially the way Anilji was very impressed with the fish video, same with me. That was like an eye-opener today. So amazing session. So we have some fantastic news for all of you, and I request Kapil to take over, please, for that.
Yes. Thank you so much, Shilpa. Venki, undoubtedly, it was a fantastic session. We do not have words to express the learnings, experiences that we had today. So some of the people were asking what the platform is all about. So I'll take a couple of minutes to talk about the platform. So we are Granth Express. Myself, Shilpa and Aliyavar Inamdar and all the members who are part of Granth Express constitute to a Granth Express. So it's a platform of expression. It's a platform of sharing whatever you are experiencing, whatever you are feeling, so that others are inspired by you and they can also be a part of expression and they can share their feelings with all of us. And the good news that Shilpa has been talking about is Granth Express has been chosen best book reading community across 30 countries in the world, where more than 1,000 book reading communities participated. And we are really thankful because it's efforts, collective efforts by each and every speaker, every storyteller, every author, every book reader who has been part of Granth Express. So this was a good news that I needed to share with you and request you to continue your love, support for Granth Express. I would now request Aliyavar Inamdar sir to take over from here. So Venki, Aliyavar sir is our mentor, our coach, our guide, our backbone for Granth Express. Over to you, Ali sir.
Thank you, Kapil. Thank you so much. Venki, what an inspiration today. And that fish, awesome. So basically, if we have chalked out what we want, which is very difficult in the given circumstances, it is very difficult to even understand what we really want from our life. But if we have, then, and if we make an effort in that direction, we definitely do wonders. And thank you, Venki. That fish thing will always remain in our minds. it will, you've engraved that. Means Venki is fish for us, for me at least.
I hope some people don't find it fishy.
Exactly. I was just about to say that.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, all in all, it was your journey. I can resonate that with myself. I have had some health challenges, health issues, and whatever you spoke, I have been through that. So I can feel you, Venki, at this point. And it's a wonderful session that we have had. Today, I was more in a listening mode. I never went here and there. I was doing my work, fully concentrating on one thing, that is my note taking. And today it's more colorful than ever. So thank you very much, Venki. Thank you all the participants. And as Kapil has already mentioned, that we've been voted as the #1 emerging community. It's only because of your love and your affection and the way you come back on daily basis, on regular basis, on every Sunday, be it 11 o'clock, be it 12 o'clock, and you are here, you shower so much love and affection, and you also want to grow. We also want to grow. Everyone wants to grow. So this is a growth-minded community, a very focused community. So that's a wonderful thing happening. We expect that you continue your support. We also request you to spread the word. Talk it with all your friends. Share the videos, share the links that you get, share the captions that you get. Bring in all your friends, bring in all your well-wishers, bring in all your colleagues, bring in all your staff members over here on this platform. Let there be a lot of sharing of knowledge, and let there be a lot of sharing of empathy also. How we gather information from each other. That's what the whole community is all about. So thank you all very much. And Kapil, you want to say something about Redomania over here?
Yeah, a quick announcement for next week. 10th of October is tributed as a mental health day. And 11th of October, we have a speaker, Mrs. Sonali Joshi, who is a psychiatrist, who is therapist. And she has got an innovative way of healing the people through art. When it comes to art, she calls herself as an art therapist, and she helps people overcome their mental challenges, their emotional challenges, their relational challenges with the help of art. And the art can be anything. It can be painting, drawing, music, and whatever. So don't miss the wonderful session next week by Mrs. Sonali Joshi, art therapist consultant. So that's all from my end. Over to you, Shilpa.
Yes, so the closing lines once again. Thank you so much, Venki. Thank you so much, each one of you who have been here on Sunday. क्योंकि usually Sunday Funday होता है और काफी सारे लोगों को knowledge नहीं चाहिए होता है, but then you've been here. So it's awesome seeing all of you people every Sunday. So thank you so much. And here we sign off from Granth Express, and let's meet next Sunday for another wonderful session. Have a beautiful day ahead, everybody. Thank you.